Good Choices, a holistic conversation about dance, art, and life with Sabine Parzer. Hi, everybody. This is Sabine with another episode of Good Choices, a holistic conversation about dance, art, and life. I'm here today with Anjelica Florant. Anjelica is a dear friend and colleague of mine from Germany. We met about 10 or 12 years ago, and we've always felt really in kindred spirits to each other. Anjelica is highly dedicated to performance, contemporary dance, and especially the form of contact improvisation. She teaches regular at contact classes, gives workshops, and organizes jams, and co-organizes the festival NORDTANZ. She teaches internationally at different contemporary dance festivals. Since 2015, she is the co-director of the dance studio Triade in Hamburg. In 2022, she brought to life the Contact CompanI, a dance company focusing especially on performing contact improvisation. Anjelica is also teaching Pilates. She's also directing independent theater productions and choreographing dance pieces. I'm super happy to talk to her about the form of contact improvisation as an art form, what it takes to practice it in a professional setting, and how to use it especially in performance. We also talk about contemplative dance practice, and we also talk about life and how we can bring all these different elements of organizing, teaching, dancing, performing, and being a parent together. I bring you this conversation with Anjelica Florant. Hi, everybody. This is Sabine with another episode of Good Choices, a holistic conversation about dance, art, and life. I'm here today with Anjelica Florant. Hi, Anjelica.
Hi, nice to see you.
Oh, it's wonderful to see you. It's so sweet because there's many things that we actually have in common in our personal lives. Amongst one of them is our birthday.
So true. The same date. Yeah.
Yeah, we are both born on the 18th of May. I think I'm 9 years older than you are. Is
That could be. I'm from 80. Yeah.
yes. So, but it was so lovely. I remember a few years ago when we found this out. I think probably through Facebook or something, we found this out. But it's like, I mean, I know you, and I like you, and then you have the same birthday, so it kind of feels like a sisterhood already, but it just is even more so now. Yeah. Do you remember when we met? Because I couldn't remember. I think I've known you for like 10, 12 years, but I can't really remember the place where we first met.
The first one, I don't remember really either. Like, I mean, you came to the Triade. I mean, I invited you to the Triade in Hamburg, but I'm not sure. Did we know each other before, or did I ask you, or you asked me if you can come? I'm not sure about that.
No, I think I
But
think we must have met somewhere else before. I mean,
yeah,
we're working in the same field. We have many common friends,
yeah.
and yeah, it's one of those things that just kind of happens. I just remember being at your place and being also at your festival and being, sharing different times at different festivals with you. And I've also always felt very, yeah, just at home with you, like at home with your view of dancing, your view of how to connect with people, how to organize things. That's it's one thing how to be creative, and it's one thing how to organize something. And yeah, just your way of being. You're also a parent, and I just really enjoy you. I enjoy your artistry, your dancing, and just you as a person.
Thank you. I could say the same from you, like a big sister.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to dive in a little bit into your
Mhm.
story. So one of the questions that I ask most of the people who are on here is, do you have an early memory of in your childhood of you moving or dancing, or it's like, do you have any like visceral memory of this, yeah, this inspiration coming through early in your life?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Freiburg, so not far away from the Black Forest. And actually my sport was skiing downhill. And as I could walk, my parents put myself on skis. And so I started with skiing, and I did competitions like my whole childhood and also as a teenager. I ended when I was 20, and then I started dancing. So
I did
but
not know.
actually,
I did not know that you were a competitive skier. Oh my
yeah,
God! So downhill skiing?
downhill skiing, yeah,
Oh my God!
slalom, and the bigger one, like in German, it's Riesenslalom and slalom, yeah. And
Wow!
so I spent all my weekends in the Black Forest in the snow, and yeah, that's where I kind of feel like somatically, I feel like I entered into my moving body, also to nature, like laying on the ground in the snow, doing snow angels, but also in the evenings, we went up the hill, rolling down. I mean, this was more the most fun part, like rolling down the hill and doing like rough housing in the snow. Like it was already kind of doing CI in a certain way.
But it must have been also really intense training. I mean, if you did that competitively, that's a lot of time dedicated from an early age on.
Right. Yeah. Half a year, like more the winter season. And we started in the fall. Actually, we went to Austria every fall to do a 2 week training, 1 to 2 week training there. And then from December to March, April. In that time, there was even more snow than now.
And
Yeah.
how would you say how did the training of skiing, which I mean is very sort of, I mean, Austrians it's a national sport, so everybody everybody has to learn how to ski. And I loved it, but I also had to stop at one point because it just felt too dangerous. Um, but it is still different than dancing. But how did you make the jump from the skiing, or how did the skiing prepare you for, or prepare your body for being a dancer?
I mean, this is now my point of view from today, but I didn't choose. Now I'm doing dancing instead of instead of skiing. But now, but I feel like the hills and the mountains, how to integrate them and to take it into your body. Like there is something you have to shift your weight in a certain way, and yeah, and that feels like similar. Like sometimes then. Being in contact and physical contact with a person, like you have also to adapt and to.
Well, you have to be strong, you have to be centered in many ways, and you have to kind of improvise also in the moment, because you don't always know what's coming on the hill. I mean, you don't know how the snow is, and you don't know what kind of bumps are coming, so you have to really react also in the moment, which is very much like what we're doing in contact.
Right. And learning to fall, like
Ah.
yeah.
Wow. I did not know that about you. See, that's beautiful. And so what was then, so did you have a conscious decision about like stopping competition, or is that something that you decided at one point, or did it just happen?
It did just happen also with my studies, because then after my high school degree, I went to France to study there. Yeah, I translated with performance arts, and then I moved out of my parents' house. So I knew that skiing costs a lot of money. And yeah, and then I entered more and more into this artistic life, and also having a lot of things to do on weekends and no more time for that anymore. There was this financial reason and also the artistic reason that I had my interest shifted somewhere else. But I already started also to train kids, and there was already my wish to teach and to transmit the material in skiing. But then, then something else came, and it just shifted over to movement, and especially first to theater. So,
Yeah, because the school that you went to was theater based, but I think I think we talked about this at one point, but can you explain a little bit the training that you had there?
Yeah, it's a university training, and we had like theater, music, and dance, but mostly theater, and a little bit of dance and music.
Mm-hmm.
And there I had my first CI classes and also other dance classes, and but there was no community, so I just went to other dance schools to train myself in ballet, jazz dance, contemporary dance, floor work.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know if this is still like, I mean, I know that you still direct theater pieces or that you're still engaged in theater, but did you feel like you had to make a choice between dancing and directing? Or I don't know if you were also performing in theater pieces, but like, was that one big story or did you have to make a choice between the two?
Oh, it was more one big story with a development. So I started more in theater, and I noticed that texts and words is not so my my favorite thing, or it's not so easy for me. So and I noticed that being in my body is more easier, and to express myself with my body feels much easier. So that's why I choose to create pieces based on physicality, but also with actors. And then it came by itself. Like sometimes I was on stage, but without text. And then I created pieces where I was behind the stage. I mean, on the other side and directing. Yeah, it was more like not a decision, it just happened.
And your choice to go to France to study, I mean, did you speak French?
Yeah, yeah.
You actually you also have a French last name.
Yeah.
How did you get that?
I got this through my ex-husband, and I kept it because this is also the relation to my older daughter, and who is half French. And yeah.
But did you have French in school or were your parents
Yeah,
French?
my parents almost didn't speak French, but I had French in school as a third language after Latin and English, and then I learned it in France, like with because I was also in the 11th grade already in France for some month, and a lot of weekends also I had already this relationship really early in France.
But still, that's quite courageous to go to a country, I mean, to study at a university level at your third or fourth language. So if Latin and English were your first two ones that like, you know, it's not a language that you grow up with. So that's a courageous step to take to go and really study in a language that's not your own.
Yeah, I felt so close to this culture, and I still feel like sometimes homesick. There's something in this, also in this artistic way they have in France. There's something I feel really close to, and I love it.
Could you describe that a little bit? Like, what is the French artistic way for you?
I think this scene, this off scene, like is much bigger and much create more. I mean, I compare it now to Germany. Than in Germany, where we have these big houses, these big theaters with their own companies. And in France, that's more the companies are traveling. So in a smaller city, you can also have companies from the bigger cities. And this creates already more this company. A company is quite common in France, more common than in Germany, because in Germany, the theaters have their own contracts with the actors and dancers and musicians.
And there's also how I perceive it is that there's a lot of collaborative or interdisciplinary approaches. Like it's not so, I feel like oftentimes, I mean, it's getting better, but over the last, I don't know, before even also here in Austria, I mean, there's like the Sprechtheater, you know, there's kind of the classical theaters, and then there's the big theaters the big houses that also get the big funding. And the independent scene is more collaborative and more interdisciplinary. But I feel like in France, it has been established much earlier, or also the probably the art funding situation is also different. I don't know that so much,
Yeah,
but it
yeah,
feels like that.
yeah.
Also that that circus is so big, and sort of these creative forms of circuitry is just it's just amazing
Yeah.
to see. Yeah. So
And
it
all
feels,
this, yeah, all the street art festivals in
yeah,
France. Yeah.
yeah. So it's yeah, I feel like in Austria and in Germany, I think that's quite similar. It's these traditional houses, and then over here it's the independent scene, and of course they're always struggling. And from what I'm hearing is that it's more fluid um, in um, in France. I feel like that's in Belgium and in the
Hmm.
Netherlands is also like that, and I think it has a lot to do with the way the funding is being distributed, because I know that I think it's mostly the Flemish that really poured out a lot of money into the independent scene, and then all of a sudden all these choreographers came up and all this beautiful work started flourishing. Um, and so this is an appeal to the funding agencies: do fund the independent artists. Hmm. And you still go back to France sometimes, right? You still have worked there?
I do. I mean, yeah, we have a family residence house over there, and I do spend some vacation over there. But also, yeah, now with our Contact CompanI, we had 2 times a residency also in Marseille,
Hmm.
and I also taught at the Grenoble Festival, and yeah,
You keep close connections.
I do. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean your company I would love to talk about. But before we do that, there is this thing that thing that we're both involved in, which is called contact improvisation. And it's yeah, I'm basically just going to ask you if you could define it, or also explain it to people who are not so familiar with contact improvisation. And of course, the background of asking you is that there are so many different definitions out there that I'm really curious of how you define it.
This is one of the most difficult questions. And every time people ask me, I answer in a different way.
Well, that's wonderful.
Also,
That's
on
kind of
the,
what the form is about, right? It's always different anyway.
it depends also who I'm with, like what I'm answering to that question.
Yeah.
And for me, first of all, it's an art form. So to express myself in an artistic way, because as I said, I tried it through theater, and also I did a lot of drawing also in my teenager years, and also plastic arts. But I noticed then after a while that it's not that, and also theater, it was not that. And then I felt like, yeah, I can express myself in contact improvisation, and this is an art form for me. Like even if it doesn't have a message or a certain theme, but yeah, this is what I first would say. It is an art form, and we are in physical contact, but not only. Like I can be also doing CI and not being in physical contact, and having more options to move than if I move alone in a space. If I would do a solo, I couldn't do all this stuff.
What is the stuff? What is that?
Like leaving the floor, I could only do it for a second or two, like in a jump, but I couldn't fly for a moment or lean so much into the space alone. I can't do it. I need a person to. I mean, I could do it with a wall, but it's completely different because it's a kind of negotiation, especially leaning.
Mhm.
Yeah, for that I need.
And again, if we're sharing this also for people who are not so familiar with the form, when we're talking about flying, that would mean that somebody is supporting you from underneath, which is what we would call an underdancer. and you, or if you were the supporter or the other person, is then supported and getting off the floor in a lift. And that's also one of the lovely flying movements that we experience, or moments. Yeah. Is it, you call it an art form, which is very interesting, because if people go to a jam, or if people have never seen it before, of course, you know this, but of course, often people will ask, well, is this like, are people fighting, or are people doing judo, or like, it doesn't always look very artsy. I mean, it can be, but it does, like, depending on the setting, I guess, also. But for you, can you explain that a little bit more? What makes it an art form for you, rather than a sport, or rather than a martial arts practice?
Yeah, I know. I mean, it can also, for me, it can also sometimes go more in this sportive way, or but if I really see it in this art form, then there's I see the space as a composition, and having the space awareness, and inviting also in my classes, I invite also people to have this more awareness of the whole space, and not only think what we do often say into a bubble, a CI bubble, like with a partner. So this is one of the things, and I really appreciate the underscore to, that's why I'm doing so many underscores from Nancy Stark-Smith, because this helps really to create a different atmosphere in a jam space than any other jam, I would say. But also focused jams, and that's what I provide. I'm only hosting focused jams with no private talking. The private talking is then in the room close to it, but this helps a lot already to say, oh, this is a special space. And yeah.
Could you share a little bit about the underscore? I mean, I know that you studied with Nancy quite a bit, and that you also offer the underscore. And again, for people who might not know it, or might have heard the term but don't really know it in detail, could you describe it a bit?
Yeah. So in the beginning of the 90s, Nancy started to question herself about her teaching. And then, as I know, there was like phases she discovered, and some of the students also talked about these phases. Always this phase you're doing in this moment of the class. And then she looked at it more precisely and gave a name to it, and a glyph, a symbol. And it's a kind of describing the what we are doing in a jam in a certain way. And there's an order that has a certain that makes sense, this order, but also we can let go of this order and it makes still sense. And
could you name some of the phases, just as an example? What are some of the phases?
So what we are usually doing when we enter into a dance space is arriving energetically first, and then physically. That's what is already often happening, and she just named it. And then there's the assembly, where we come together in a circle. Preambulation is walking around the space, seeing each other. Then she invented this name, Skinosphere, to dive into your skin, inside of you, which comes out of this name Kinesphere that came later, and then Kinesphere from Laban, to reach out a little bit more in the space, overlapping Kinesphere. And then there's this famous word, grazing, like a cow getting some nice herbs in different corners of the dance space, tasting. And there's different connections in the grazing. And I think the connections which are like, for example, influence, contrast, this gives a lot, nourishes a lot the composition part in
Yeah.
the dance space.
I mean, I'm so glad that, there's people out there who are teaching contact improvisation in a compositional context. I come from from a contemporary dance background, and I, learned contact as part of a larger context. And I feel like there's a lot of people, or it's just kind of a natural development within the contact community or within a larger dance community, where there's a lot of ecstatic dancing or 5 rhythms and people, or barefoot dancing, and people like to go to dance parties, and they also like to go to contact jams, which is totally fine. But I often feel like there's a lack of awareness that it's actually it actually was it started from being a performance practice. It started really from dancers who were investigating not only their bodies and the touch, but space and movement qualities, and that there's so much more to it. And I'm not a super strict sort of, you have to go and study dance in order to do contact improvisation. But I feel like when people are just entering a contact jam, there's often a lack of awareness around everything that you just shared, around spatial awareness, about compositional awareness, about it being an art form that has depth and has study and technique that's related to it. And I often feel like, that's missing. And at the same time, I think it's so important for us teachers to pass that on and to clarify that also, and to give people the skills to not only get enmeshed in this CI bubble and then close off their entire awareness. And just, we can get so busy with each other and with the lovely sensation of touch, of course. I love, we're all, touch junkies in a way. We're all craving the touch, but oftentimes it distracts us from, what else is possible out there. So yeah, thank you for being so clear about that and for offering such clear spaces around that.
And actually, I recognize that it's a good thing to invite beginners to an underscore jam. Like, I have a really good experience with that.
Because you're giving them tools right away, and it's not just an entirely open space where everything is possible, but you're giving them a guideline.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you started a company a few years ago. Is that right?
Yeah, just last year ago.
Okay.
I mean, we're almost in 24 then. It was, I started in 22.
You're 22. Yeah, well, that's almost 2 years.
Yeah.
And you're really committed to the practice of contact improvisation as a performance practice. How do you shape that with company members? Like, do you practice scores, or like, what's your practice with each other to make it a performance practice for you?
Yeah, we train in techniques. Also, we give some space to techniques to train, to get somehow better in techniques, in contact techniques. But also, we train a lot with scores. We try out different scores to let go of them in the end, and get out with not knowing anything. I mean, in the last 2 times we decided we take somehow the underscore and as a tool, and it's still there, and we can have this as a base for our performance. But otherwise, we are going into the unknown when we are performing. Yeah, and it is incredible that we take so much time to rehearse and not knowing what to do in the end. Yeah.
But what happens in how do you see a benefit of it? I mean, I'm assuming that it doesn't feel like nothing, because you have it in your bodies, and you have the experience in your bodies of connecting in different ways, and that would show up in the performance.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think also more than only the training, because that's what I invited people the first time in April to come to Portugal to have a 3-week residency, and to have a space where we can live, eat, cook, and live together. And And this creates also something, and this is so special to CI also, that it's not we are doing something and then everybody is going home. And I think this we learn each other to know on different levels, which is not always so easy. But also that gives something in the end when we go out and perform. It has, in my opinion, it has an influence in the end if we live together for a while, if you know each other really well.
Well, 3 weeks is a long time. I mean, you have to be able to navigate your own needs and your collaborators' needs in some way. And in some way that, you know, performance is always such a heightened state. So it's kind of good to know the people that you're with who are on stage. What's the name of the company?
Contact CompanI.
Contact CompanI.
Yeah, with a big E and I in the end. I in the end, yeah.
And what are the places that you're performing at?
So we started in Portugal, and then we went 2 times to Marseille in France, and then now in November we were in Hamburg. But it's like quite difficult to get everybody together, and also in terms of funding, money, it's not so easy. And this is also a thing I wanted to try out, because there's not really, like, to get money, there's not really a case for us. Like the improvising on stage, is this a premiere or not? Because we rehearsed already, like it doesn't fit in all this forms.
Into the categories.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, I just did the podcast with Eva, and it's just so good to remember also, it's like we're in the niche of the niche. Like we're not just in the contemporary dance, which is already a niche within the context of dance, but then we're in the improvisational area, and then we're in the contact improvisational area. So it's like So and I always find that so interesting that in the wider recognition of the arts, that like jazz as a music form has reached recognition and is recognized as a separate art form within a genre. And then of course within jazz there's many different variations to it. I mean, you can have very sort of harmonic jazz, or you have the melody driven jazz, you know, of Miles Davis, but then you can have free jazz, but it's still improvisational based. And it's so hard for improvised dance to be recognized as an art form that needs preparation, that needs rehearsals, that needs funding in order to be performed. And at the same time, it's so juicy. It's so incredible. I was just in Berlin, and you know our common friend Peter Plyer. And I just saw his company. Actually, I did a podcast with him also, and he was performing with his company Cranky Bodies. And you know, it's so improvisational based, but it's also so interdisciplinary, because he has a filmmaker and he has a costume designer, and they're playing with the costumes on stage. And then, you know, one of my favorite people in this world, Esther Gall, she's just this amazing performer who's just shaping the space the whole time. And yes, it's improvisational, you know, it's based in improvisation, but there are so many skills in order to go out on stage. And they did a 3-hour performance also, which was just incredible, you know. So yeah, so I really, really wish that you can sustain that long-term investigation.
Yeah.
I remember applying for funding here in Austria. Okay, this is a little story, for the Contact Improvisation Festival, and I just avoided the word improvisation altogether. Instant composition works very well. I would not put improvisation into the application. Performance, it's performance.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that hint.
So, you know, one of the things that's always amazing to me, and it's amazing to me about you and your life, is that you're doing so many things on so many different levels. I mean, you're a dancer and a performer, and you're a teacher, and you're an organizer, and you're a director, and you're a parent, and you're a partner, and you're, you know, shaping a community. And I'm just, you know, wondering, how do you do it? I mean, I'm always wondering, how do I do it? But if I get to ask you, how do you do it?
Sometimes I'm wondering myself, but I'm also at a point, like half a year ago, I thought I can't, and we talked about together, you two, with you, I think, and that I can't do this anymore, everything like alone. And since a few months, I also have somebody who assists me and helps me a lot in public relation, and that's really helpful and great. Yeah.
Do you feel like your dancing skills, like your ability to shift and to accommodate uncertainty, is helping you in this multiplicity of responsibilities?
That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, I think it helps sometimes to have different projects, that if one project is not going so well, then you're not depressing, then you have still a lot of other things to do, and other things are going really well, and that helps a lot, I think, to navigate through all the low phases, and yeah.
But it's a lot. I mean, I always think, like, for me, I have to like shift the different parts of my brain. Like, if I'm going into teaching, I have you know, teaching and moving, like a certain part of my brain is on. But if I'm going to sit down and write an application, or write even a workshop description, or, you know, doing bookkeeping, or, you know, like the more administrative stuff, and, you know, writing applications can be super intense. It's just such a different part of the brain, and like always shifting and always kind of holding all balls in the air is, you know, also just attention wise. It's like, okay, there's the moving part, and there's a body that needs constant attention and care, and then there's, you know, a business and a community also. I mean, I do see you also really in Hamburg as one of the people who are like really shaping and creating a community. So
yeah, and that takes also a lot of work, like even to have like one-on-one talks because there's some things not going so well or something like that, and you just do it for the community without being paid for that, right? Like yeah.
So it takes a huge amount of passion for what it is that you're doing, and I see that within you. I see you're really, really like, for me, you're one of these people who are like, this is what I do. This is my, like, I think you embody dancing and the love for contact improvisation on so many different levels. And I think it takes people like you to really hold the community also on a certain level, like a certain level of awareness around bodies, boundaries, creativity. So.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. We just last Sunday we just celebrated 30 years of the Sunday Jam in Hamburg.
Wow.
And also the Triade as an association exists now since 30 years.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Now, we have one more thing in common, which I don't know if you know. I used to be married to a musician. This is a long time ago, but still, it was quite you know, an intense collaboration. And you are partnered with a musician, Nathaniel. And I'm wondering if you can share a little bit how that is influencing your dance and or your relationship. Like, is that something that's really easy for you also to separate between work and partnership, or parenting even? Yeah, how is that for you?
Yeah, since a few years we are both freelancers, because there was a time Nathaniel wasn't a freelancer, and now we are both freelancers. And this is not so easy all the time, also in terms of spaces and and music makes sounds. And yeah, but we find our ways and we work together. Like for we often go together to festivals when we're invited. We try it. We are invited in the same festivals and support each other there in terms of also the childcare, because then we take our smallest one with us, Amalia. And it kind of works quite well. But what doesn't work so much is that we tried a certain way also that Nathaniel is like coming to workshops and classes, and this is quite rare now. And this is a gift if you have a live musician in your class. Like, it's a real gift, and we can do it. We can manage it, because this is not so easy to also in terms of when does the music come in, and how long does he play, and is he staying there for the whole time and not playing, like. And now at the moment we don't have that time anymore to, like, yeah, we can't manage to keep some time. It's really rare that we have that luxury.
And he often plays for the jams that you offer.
Yeah.
I have to say that I find him to be one of the finest musicians to hold dance spaces, because he's so interested in dance. I think that has a lot to do with it. Like, if musicians know about the practice of contact improvisation or improvisation, through the body, I think that really is important. And then he has such a fine attunement to atmospheric changes, or he also I feel like he's also often really stepping back and looking at the larger picture, and it's not about the music, but like the music is supporting the space, and there's very few musicians who can do that really well. And I have to make him this compliment via this podcast.
Yeah, that's so nice. Yeah, he did also a lot of development from now we know each other since 12 years, and yeah, in the beginning he was like taking the jam space as a concert space, and that changed over the
well, I'm sure he's learned that through you and your collaboration with you.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk to you about one other practice that you're really involved in, which is the contemplative dance practice. I see that you offer it regularly, and I'm wondering also in relationship to the more performance-oriented work that you're doing. Can you explain contemplative dance practice, and can you share why it's important to you?
Yeah, I learned contemplative dance practice also from Nancy Stack-Smith, and she took it over from Barbara Dilley. And I use it in the small version, usually in this 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes, and the first 20 minutes are dedicated to a sitting meditation. And then the second 20 minutes to a personal warm-up, yoga, shaking, whatever comes in that moment. And then the third 20 minutes to the open space, improvisation in solo, but also you can go into physical contact. And witnessing, observing is a big part in this third phase. And that's where I see also this relation to performing. Is that it helps a lot to have a witnessing person, an observing person on the outside, and to be authentic, because that is often the shift when to perform CI is not so easy, because then it's getting into a showing, and then we are overdoing, and being authentic in this moment is quite hard. And I think authentic movement, what you're doing a lot, and contemplative practice is helping to stay on the ground, having the roots, and staying in the moment, and not heading ahead. I'm going to do that next.
Yeah, or getting ambitious, and then pushing the tension and pushing the actual real connection that you're having at this moment, which is one of the hardest things about performing contact. I feel that it's like there's excitement, and then it affects your tonus, and then it affects your connection, and then we're focused outside, whereas it takes so much attention to tune in with one person for that thing to emerge and to work organically. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in the contemplative dance practice, like I was just doing it in one of my teachers' training the other day, and there was this question of what's the purpose of it, or if it's like, for me, it's a beautiful open space that combines the meditative aspect of it and the spaciousness of listening to what it is that I'm doing, but it's not authentic movement, and you don't have an assigned witness, and so, like, how do you explain to people that openness of the space or that openness of the form in contemplative dance practice?
I don't really explain it so much. I say to people, please come and live it once, because if you haven't done it, then it's really hard. And of course, it needs this this also that you can for a moment go into this meditation situation, what is not easy for everybody, and not everybody wants that, and that's completely fine. But this is one of the most important things of the contemplative dance practice, that you're ready to go into meditation.
Yeah. And that's also really the tie over that Barbara Dilly did from the Buddhist practice into the dance practice. And I mean, I'm doing a visionary craniosacral training for the last 3 years, and I just interviewed my teacher, Hugh Milne, and one of the hardest things for me and for many dancers is to sit still or to be still, and it is such an important part of moving to have the counterpart, the stillness. And so I feel like in the contemplative dance practice, we really bring that in. We bring that in all of this movement, in all of this interconnection in space and with each other, there's also the stillness and the interconnection on a different level. So
and to contemplate the inner little movements inside of you, that we don't like to sit still, but if we sit still and listen to this small movements inside, then it's completely different, sitting still and stillness.
Yeah, which of course relates then again to the small dance, but the small dance is standing, and it's a little bit more reflexive. Angela Mara, it's so lovely to talk to you.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to share? Anything that you want to share about your work or your practice, or anything that's touching you?
I have just this wish that CI is getting more recognized, and gets more into the institutions also, especially I think in Germany. I'm not so sure about Austria, but in Germany compared to other countries, I think it's a little bit a lack of that, that it's still missing in the professional trainings in theater, but also in dance. And last week, I just had a talk to the new director of the Erika Klütz Schule in Hamburg. It's a 3-year training, professional training. And I went to 1 year of this training. And now there's a new director. And now she said, okay, let's bring contact improvisation into this training. And I'm really happy to start there next year. Yeah.
Oh, lovely. Well, you're such a carrier of that message. I mean, you embody that message and you live that message by everything that you offer, from your jams and your CDP places, spaces, and the festival that you organize, NORDTANZ, which is a beautiful festival outside of Hamburg. And so everything that you do, I feel like that's you're bringing that into the world. So thank you for your passion and your professionality.
I could say the same to you. Thank you so much also for this podcast. It's really nice. And also to hear so many different voices about kind of the same topic and having different topics in the same big field. It's really interesting that you bring so many people together and give them voices. Yeah.
Yeah, they're my friends, they're my colleagues, and they help me shape my own voice. Like I always learn so much through, I mean, I love talking to people, but it's also really always helpful for me to hear other people speak about, things that are, in there. And then we still, always, I feel like the practice of finding a language around our moving, I think is so important for also for part of the recognition of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Angela Mara. I hope to see you soon.
Yeah, I hope to see you soon too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
If you would like to know more about holistic dance and the Holistic Dance Institute, please visit us at our website www.holistic-dance.at. Holistic dance is an invitation to transformation through dance, movement, and touch. It was founded by me, Sabine Parzer, in 2010. It is a mix of different methods, a dynamic cross-method approach from dance pedagogical, dance and body therapeutic, systemic and holistic methods. We offer authentic movement, integrative contact improvisation, somatics and applied anatomy, improvisation, ecosomatics, and many more elements. I offer holistic dance workshops, I offer single sessions, I offer teachers trainings, embodiment trainings, advanced teachers tracks, year groups, and retreats. I would be very happy to see you at one of our events. And if you have any questions, please write me an email.